What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Bring the Thunder podcast. Special guest alert. Thundor himself, Garrett Thundor Havlin, is back in the building, ready to take on a part two of our OKC player tier list. We are going to do our first one with peak in OKC skill-wise and talent-wise, OKC alone. And then after that list, we're going to go over to our likability again. We know that a lot of you guys had a bunch of opinions, and we have a new list here. And let's just get right into it. So our first player here is none other than, I don't want to mispronounce the first name. Jack, do you have the first name? It's like
Nenad, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nenad Kristich, guys. Come on.
I said Nenad. I just wanted to make sure. So Garrett, I mean, S tier being the top, peak talent OKC. Where are we placing Kristich at?
Oh man, he was a great foundational center for the Thunder. He kind of helped them get off the snide because without him, they didn't really have a reliable big man. I personally loved the dude, but I mean, he never really rose too high. He's probably at either the top of C or low B. But I really think that he was able to give the Thunder the big man that you needed in the beginning to kind of build around with the three that they had with Westbrook, Durant, and Green. But he never really had that big game. He was never much of a double-double machine. He was just kind of that reliable, shoot it from the elbow, maybe bang down low a few times, get you a handful of rebounds. So,
all right, so you want to go top C?
For now, we could do that, yeah.
Jack, your opinion?
I'm cool with that. I didn't watch him much, so my knowledge is pretty limited. So
yeah, with Kristich, I agree with Garrett. I was thinking more towards middle C, just because, I mean, he was extremely important in the beginning years of Oklahoma City. But like Garrett said, he was never much of a double-double, big-time night type of guy. So, yeah, we'll throw him C for now. Moving on, guy we were just mentioning earlier before we hit the record button, Kevin Martin came over to Oklahoma City in the James Harden trade. Garrett.
Oh, man, he's definitely going up A for me. I was devastated when they didn't bring him back. I felt like he served for the perfect third piece for those guys once Harden left. He was a big-time volume shooter and scorer. He was one of those microwave scorers. You could always, you could look up and he'd have a quick 20 encroaching on 30. He was a reliable shooter from deep. He helped with the spacing. He helped lead the Thunder to the number 1 seed until, the dirty dog Pat Bev ruined our hopes and chances. So I'm going at least A for sure. Probably mid-A.
Mid-A. All right, Jack?
Kind of disagree with that logic. Yeah, again, I didn't watch him too much, but I think that's a solid ranking.
Yeah, for me, I was definitely going to go A. I think Kevin Martin was a breath of fresh air, especially when we lost James in that trade. But just being Kevin Martin in Oklahoma City history is one of the more top-tier scoring shooting guards we've had. So just for that sole purpose alone, I like him at A. And then, yeah, I mean, if Westbrook didn't go down that year, I thought we had a pretty good chance, especially coming off, finals blunder the year before. So, yeah, I like Kevin Martin at A. We'll move on along. We got Dion Waiters. Garrett.
He was absolutely inconsistent as hell, but fun to watch. So,
I definitely agree with that.
And one all day. But you got to go probably low B, high C on him. And that's mostly for a consistency factor. He was hilarious to watch, frustrating to watch, but never gave you that consistent piece that you really wanted him to be. So, and one all day, put him at B or C.
Jack?
Torn between probably C+, but see what you have to say, Joe. But
for me, that's a B tier peak. I absolutely love Dion Waiters. Mr. Inconsistent himself. but what a fun player to watch. Really important in that San Antonio series. Had some like massive impact on I think it was forgot what game it was, but it was game in San Antonio. Kind of helped us steal one in San Antonio to kind of lock up that series when Westbrook had the and one to finish it. I think he's a B tier just because, like I said before, with the OKC pass shooting guards, just a better offensive player than most. So I like B. And then moving right on into another shooting guard, Jeremy Lamb, another piece that came over in that James Harden trade, Garrett.
Sleepy eyes himself. I was so frustrated because when we got the Harden trade, you're immediately trying to convince yourself that everything's going to be okay. Kevin Martin was that piece that made me feel okay in the long run, but I thought we were going to have Lamb for a long time. I thought he was going to make something of himself, and I just never felt like he really fit in, and he was never able to take that next step. Lucky for him, he had a great career after Oklahoma City. He managed to play several more years, so kudos to that. But with the Thunder, he's low C for me.
Jack?
Yeah, he never really broke his expectation or took that next step with OKC. So purely based off OKC, he'd be C tier.
This is bad because we're all kind of agreeing here, and we're going to need some controversy eventually. But, yeah, I'm going to go C tier. I remember playing NBA Live with Jeremy Lamb. They had you could be a pro career, so you're just Jeremy Lamb. And I thought this guy was going to be so good for OKC. I thought he had massive upside, massive potential. And, I mean, in NBA Live he did for sure. But he never really reached it in OKC. And, yeah, kudos to him for having a solid NBA career. But, yeah, lower C tier for me. Just never reaches potential. Okay, we'll move on. Another shooting guard, Terrence Ferguson.
D. He had the one game against the Lakers where he dropped like 24. It was a fun game. The team all rallied around him because we had some injuries, and that was a great moment for him. But, Oklahoma's own, came from Tulsa area, I believe, but he just never really rose to what he could have been. His athleticism was great, but he could never hit a consistent outside shot. The reliability factor, just the hopes and dreams of what I wanted him to be, and he wasn't. I would put him under Jeremy Lamb, probably at the top of the D.
Yeah. Well, Terrence Ferguson for me was like one of the first years I fully started watching 82 games a season. So he was really I really liked him, but he never took that step. So it was sad to see. But in his peak, I got to say low C tier, like the best of the best, but I guess there's a bit of bias.
I'm going to go D tier, right under Lamb too, because he came on so strongly, especially in that Lakers game. And he had a few games after that where he was hitting threes and he was looking so promising. I thought to myself, like, OKC finally has their two guard that could sit in the corner and hit a consistent three. And then this guy was also like super athletic, but he never panned out. He kind of faded away towards playoff series. Ended up coming off the bench. Short-lived career at OKC. Appreciated, but it's got to be D tier. Trey Mann.
Dynamic scorer, but he couldn't get past the lack of defense, and that's why he's no longer on the team. But the highlights, I think, outweigh some of the lowlights. He had some killer games. I would probably put him above Ferguson on that cusp of C to D. I'm maybe above Lamb because I think he had more potential there. So you could probably convince me there. I don't know, but I cheer for him. I love his attitude. I love the engagement that he has with the current core of guys that we have on the team. But just was a defensive liability at times, and he never quite got over that well with the Thunder.
Jack.
Yeah, I think peak performance, I think he's got to be better than Lamb, but I don't think he ever really a lot of these guys never showed what they could be or never took that step that we were expecting, but the best he ever played for OKC was still pretty good. He had some pretty good games, like those end of the season games, and he was always killing it in the G League. So I think peak time with OKC, he's above Lamb.
I have a really hard time here with Trey Mann. it'll be a different ranking for likability for sure. I don't know if I could put him over Jeremy Lamb. I know he had some great games that Jeremy Lamb never had. Jeremy Lamb was also part of bigger teams than Trey Mann. Trey Mann got a lot of, games where he started with other guys that I couldn't even tell you the names of anymore. There. So I mean, he did have a couple. I think Trey Mann had like a 30-point triple double, or he had a triple double and then a 30-point game back to back in Dallas. So there are some highlights that I will always remember, but I think I have to go lower C under Lamb, just because it was kind of more either garbage time minutes or a lot of starters out, because that was also part of that rebuilding process time. So lower C for me. Okay, let's move on. Player we just traded this past offseason, Josh Giddey. This should be interesting.
Yeah, I would put him above Kevin Martin. I think he meant a lot to the team when he was here. I think he showed a lot of potential. The defensive liability was there, but Kevin Martin had the same kind of issues. He had a more well-rounded game. He'd get you the rebounds, he'd get you the assist. The three never quite developed. The defense was never there. He became a liability in the playoffs. But overall, I think the skill set and the help for the initial growth of what the Thunder are now, he kind of helped lay some of the foundation for that. So out of that respect, I'll give him, the top rating so far.
Yeah, I think he's definitely very high A, borderline S tier for me. I think the peak of Josh Giddey is Madison Square Garden Josh Giddey, and that is one of the best players in this league. He did something crazy. So, yeah, again, just another player who we were waiting for him to take that step and ran out of time for him to take that next step. But unfortunate allegations and media, which ruined his confidence. Just went down from there, really, which is kind of sad to see. But he's doing pretty good on the Bulls now.
Yeah, it's definitely hard for a player to focus on just basketball when he's got a lot of other turmoil around him. Love Josh Giddey. Definitely an A tier for me, over Kevin Martin for sure. He had a great peak in OKC. He's only going to get better. He's still extremely young. I just wish he was able to be like, okay, yeah, buy in. I do want to come off the bench. I mean, it's really hard for I wouldn't want to come off the bench if I was Josh Giddey, but I do wish he was still here with, even Caruso being here. I love Alex Caruso, but yeah, peak in OKC, high A tier player, just wasn't a great fit for the long run. I mean, he's going off in Chicago now. He looks unbelievable. But yeah, also defense as well, kind of downside. Okay, let's move on. This is one of my, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. Derek Fisher.
To me, he's B tier above Dion Waiters. I think he meant a lot to the team. He kind of helped them in those early playoff runs. He kind of was that stabilizing force that you could bring in off the bench to kind of help the second unit along. He could hit the reliable three ball. Just a great leader in general, and I think that was really helpful in those early years of the Thunder getting their playoff footing underneath them. So,
yeah, not much to add for me, but I agree, B tier.
Yeah, I absolutely love Derek Fisher. For skill, peak here, I'm gonna put him at B. Great ad for OKC. Had some huge, big-time shots, especially stabilizing them for when they were young, first heading into the playoffs. I remember when we got Derek Fisher, I was just super stoked, and he kind of transformed into a really nice two guard for OKC. He played a lot of two, and just hit some big-time wing threes. Loved his time in OKC, so B tier for me. Okay, here's one we could probably all agree on: Serge Ibaka.
He's on the cusp of the S tier to me. I think his defense probably puts him there. I think he was it was the first time that outside of Jeff Green that Presti kind of started pushing with the stretch four, trying to get him to hit those threes. I think if we would have kind of delved more into that and he got more committed to that, it would have definitely put him in the S tier, solidly. But Eric Congo, Serge Ibaka, what he meant to the team, I think I can go ahead and put him in the S tier. Although, when you take up the whole roster from like your previous podcast to this one, I think he may find himself closer to the A than in the S. I do feel that he's right there on that cusp, and I do think he meant a lot to the franchise. Obviously, choosing him for the most part over Harden kind of spoke volumes to what Presti's mindset was in that time. So,
yeah, I think he was key for the creating the defensive culture in OKC that we can see today. And he's really good when he played. So, and I wouldn't put him on the same level as Josh Giddey and Kevin Martin as peak. So, S tier makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely S tier. Serge Ibaka, dunk contest participant. That was awesome. He took off from the free throw line. I think he bit like a teddy bear off the rim.
Yeah, it was a stuffed rumble that he bit off the back of the rim.
Stuffed rumble,
It was
yeah.
impressive dunks, just unfortunate he didn't bring home the win.
The one thing I will say with Serge is I kind of didn't like. I know the game was evolving. So when he stretched out to the 3-point line, I mean he was a pretty decent 3-point shooter for OKC. I just didn't love the amount of threes he ended up taking, especially in the Golden State series. I thought he could have dominated inside, and they never got to. I think Serge could have been an outstanding inside the paint basketball offensive player, but I don't think we focused around that. Obviously, we had Russ, KD, a bunch of other guys, but Serge defense alone and what he did for OKC S tier for sure. I can't even see the screen. Jack, can you see?
Yeah, Anthony Morrow's next.
For some reason, they blurred out for me, so I'm going to have you take it over.
Anthony Morrow to me was probably like the fastest hands in the West. I mean, he could put up a shot so fast. His shot release was amazing to watch. He was Isaiah Joe before Isaiah Joe. I just don't think he got enough consistent minutes to really showcase. I think the NBA was in a bit of a like a gray area as it was becoming more of the 3-ball era. And Morrow was before that, unfortunately. I think if he played nowadays, we'd see him being a lot more like the Isaiah Joe. But because of his time with the Thunder, I don't think he meant as much as Nads did back in the day. So I would probably put him right below that on the C tier between Nanot and Lamb. But you go talk about likability. I just loved his game, but it just never quite found its consistency in minutes and shot making.
Yeah, I'm trying hard to put the bias aside because he's quite a likable guy. But yeah, I agree with that. C tier for sure.
Yeah, definitely a C tier. I'm trying to decide if I would argue above or below Jeremy Lamb. Solid player for OKC, had some great games. But yeah, like Garrett said, that gray area where, I mean, Anthony Morrow today would be outstanding. He'd just like Garrett said again, he'd be like our Isaiah Joe. He was a gritty guy as well. I mean, dug his feet in on defense. I'm okay with putting him over Jeremy Lamb, but I could argue in between Trey and Jeremy Lamb as well. But C tier for sure. Yeah, Jack, I can't see the rest of you. Have to.
We got Chet Holmgren next.
That's going to be top of the S tier. He's the actualized version of Serge Ibaka. He brings the defense. He has a strong outside game. The one thing that he has, head and shoulders above Ibaka is the handling. He can take it to the hoop on his own. He's, outside of just being healthy, he's everything we'd ever want him to be. And he showed the ability to be healthy for all 82 games last year. So I look forward to what he's got to offer for the rest of this season and moving forward with the Thunder. S tier all day, every day.
I can see the argument above Ibaka, but I feel like he hasn't even touched his peak at the moment. So I'll agree with it, but I could see either way, below or above Ibaka. Definitely S tier, but definitely in the future we'll
Yeah, I got him. I got him top S. Not only does he have a better handle than Ibaka, his confidence level and his swagger is way higher than Serge, just because Chet is just better all around. Surprising enough, I mean, Serge Ibaka was a block monster, but Chet probably might be a better rim protector, to be fully honest. Better three-point shooter, better handle, better off the dribble. He's only getting better. We're already watching the leap this year since he's come back from injury. He's been outstanding. And he just keeps getting better and better by game. So I'm going to put him over Serge. Yeah, Jack, you're right. He hasn't fully even peaked yet, but I still think this year's peak better than Serge all the time.
Fair enough. Next, we have Eric Manor.
I loved Eric Maynor. I think he was your quintessential backup point guard. He's everything that you want in a sixth man. Unfortunately, injury took him out earlier than it should. But when he was at his peak, he was awesome. I would put him definitely at the top of the B tier, if not borderlining A. But he had his peak was short-lived, like I said, again, due to injury, but he was everything you'd want in your backup point guard. So,
yeah, the argument for A tier, I guess, if his peak is still his peak, no matter how long it lasted. So, ranking them by their peak, he could be, but I'm happy with a consensus pick.
I'm good with B. My earliest memories of Eric Maynor were he had a half-court shot. And that's what kind of opened my eyes to actually watch his game a little bit more. I thought he was a pretty solid point guard, a little undersized, but definitely better than Derek Fisher speaking OKC. So B tier is good.
Next, we have Perry Jones.
He had flashes, but his inconsistency drove me insane. I would put him towards the end of C. And he had his moments, but it was just so frustrating to watch. When the Thunder picked him, after his injury at Baylor, he dropped in the draft. I thought they got a diamond in the rough. So I think my problem is that I had my expectations through the roof that he was going to come in and be the perfect backup to Durant, and he never actualized into anything like that. So.
Yeah, I don't see an argument for him being over Trey Mann. He's definitely over Terrence Ferguson, so I think that's a pretty good ranking.
I doing this list is kind of upsetting because there's so many players here that I just had super high expectations for. Perry Jones probably being the top of the list. Another NBA Live guy, man. What a player! But Perry Jones. Upsettingly enough, I think he's top D tier. I think my expectations outweigh the actual peak of what I saw on the court and the product. Never panned out. Had maybe a few good games. But yeah, I'd go top D or bottom C for sure. Upsetting.
Yeah, that's fine. We can put him in D. That way Terrence Ferguson isn't lonely down there.
Yeah, he is looking a little lonely anyway.
All right, last but not least, Isaiah Joe.
I would put Isaiah Joe probably right below Kevin Martin in the A tier. In my opinion, Isaiah Joe's the greatest free agent signing that Oklahoma City Thunder have ever had before Hartenstein came along, which speaks volumes as to how sad free agency has always been for Oklahoma City. But Isaiah Joe's energy, his shot-making ability, and his willingness to give it his all on the defensive end, even though that might not be his strong point. I think he's willing to do anything and everything it takes to win. Great teammate. A lot of respect for him.
Yeah. Just battling the recency bias and obviously the likability bias because there's a lot of it in play. But I think, yeah, he's definitely A tier. Could be higher, but I think that's a good ranking.
For me, A tier 1,000% on this list. Just scratching the surface this year is really becoming one of, probably we'll look back on and say his breakout year. He's been excellent He's had some rough nights here and there, but that's what shooters do. They're streaky, right? So, but this guy's more than a shooter. He's super athletic, sneaky athletic, actually. And yeah, I don't think his defense gets enough credit. I think he is a fine defender. Kevin Martin's 1 year was probably better than Joe's had yet, but I'd look forward to putting Isaiah Joe in between Giddey and Martin, hopefully in the next few years. But yeah, so check this out. Let us know what you guys think. We will have graphics posted on Instagram. Yell at me if I was wrong. Tell me if we were right. And we're just going to move right into the likability.
Let's get it.
Yeah, so we're jumping right into likability here with the same list of guys. Just to clarify, because we did have a few comments that weren't too nice. This is not the player, not the product on the court. This is the likability of the guy when he was in OKC, the person, the human being. So, Jack, I could see again, thank God. So, Garrett, we'll go to you first. Kristich back up on top of the list.
Oh, man. How can you not love a man who's going to throw a chair for his country? You know, I loved Nads when he was here. He was probably my second favorite player next to Westbrook, mostly because I was young and immature and his nickname that we gave him was Nads. I'm going to put him in A tier for me. Watching him throw that chair during the international play was also just so entertaining. Bringing some WWE to the NBA and to the global game was great.
Jack.
Not much for me to comment on this, but I'm happy with that based off that description.
Yeah, all right. So I had a hard time ranking Kristich here. There was good times. He was a good dude. I'm gonna say, I know we have a lot of guys left, but towards the upper echelon of B for me. But I'm cool with putting him A for now. Okay, we'll move right on to Dion Waiters. Likability.
Yeah, I see the problem with the likability is that you're just going to sit here and be like, well, they're all Thunder players, and I love them all so equally. But Dion Waiters, like I said earlier, when kind of discussing his game, he was inconsistent, but damn it, was it fun. And, he could turn any NBA game into a drinking game every time he screamed and won. So for that, I got to appreciate him. I'm going to put him low A, high B. So for now, we can go ahead and put him next to Nads. But I enjoyed it. He was a hoot. He was wild. He always had crazy things to say. So.
Yep. Again, not much for me. You can take it over, Joe.
Yeah, for me, I absolutely love Dion Waiters. One of my favorite OKC players of all time as we're talking likability. Just because, listen, we traded for the guy midseason. OKC hasn't had, many in-season trades that really affected the team, and as much as Dion Waiters did. But yeah, funny as hell, and just kind of gave a younger Joe a little bit of hope at that 2-guard position. So yeah, I'll put him A tier for sure. Moving on, Chet Holmgren.
Chet's got the swag. He's got that attitude. He's got the full of confidence. He's not afraid to laugh at himself. He's pretty candid in interviews. He's willing to sing on AT&T commercials, so kudos to him. I'll put him S tier.
Yeah, for sure. The culture he's created, we wouldn't have all those post-game interviews without him, because that started with him in that Summer League series. So as for likability, I think he conducts himself very well. Every time I watch a podcast or an interview, he's always talking very with great insight. So I really like his character and obviously everything he does outside of basketball.
Yeah, Chet's the man. S tier, any type of player list I'm looking at. Really good point there, Jack, starting the group Summer League post-game interviews with Josh and a few other guys. Funny as hell, carries so much swag to himself. Like you mentioned, I think the new AT&T commercial is great with him and Dub. This team, everybody on this team this year, you gotta love, and Chet's definitely a S tier type of likability. All right, we'll move on to Eric Meiner. I think we're gonna have a few differences here.
I think he was soft spoken, and so that was probably like, as far as like the character of himself or how he was portrayed in the public may be kind of difficult. I do appreciate him as a sideline coach now. I like that he stayed with the organization. That to me makes him more likable because of the longevity, because of the respect that he has in the organization. So I would probably put him at B.
Yeah, good mention about the coaching. It's always cool to see the impact, and you're not just a Thunder player when you're playing, you're a Thunder player for life. So it's cool to see the community and how he's giving back. So low A, high B for me.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of people watching this video who aren't, OKC fans. They're gonna be like, Eric Meiner, what? These guys are out of their mind putting him in B. No, this dude was a bit quiet on the team, but he was definitely likable. And now coming back to OKC to coach, I mean, I think that just shows volumes of the Oklahoma City Thunder organization and the city around it. Westbrook never wanted to leave. He loves OKC. You saw on his Instagram, every time he comes back to OKC, it's all love. He loves it there. But with Eric Maynard, yeah, I'm good with B tier, especially now being one of the assistants. B tier is good with me.
Sweet.
Josh Giddey.
I think Josh Giddey is probably going to be our hardest one to rank, just because of the dark shadows that kind of follow him due to the legal allegations and everything. I enjoyed him, when he was here. I rooted for the guy, but the sordid past, makes me want to put him at like a C. It's just really hard to kind of give him his just due. Like I might be willing to go up to B, but it's just, it's a really unfortunate set of circumstances. And I wish him nothing but the best, but it just kind of really put a damper on the entire season overall. And I know it absolutely affected how he played as well. So
for me, so you have him at C. I have him top of A. I loved like the pick. I loved what he could have been. Off the court, he seemed like a good guy. And I feel bad for him. But I like his perseverance. He played like 30 games last season, being booed every single second he touched the ball, carried on going. But I guess I could bump him down a little bit for the rumors coming out that he refused to come off the bench. So I'm not sure how much I like that. So maybe B would be my final ranking, but we'll see. Joe, where you put him?
Yeah, this is tough. Loved Josh's game, but we're not talking about that. To be fully honest, I don't think he really fit. There's a lot of times where in those post-game interviews, he looked a bit out of place, a little bit awkward. Not all the time. But you did have a very good point with his perseverance with being booed every single game loudly. For something I'm not going to comment on because we don't know. Josh Giddey. I don't mind the C tier rank. I think I'm in agreement. Probably mid C tier. It's good for me.
Sweet.
Jack, can we agree on C, or do you want to have an argument here?
Well, I think my bias as well from him being from my part of the world and having that connection into the Thunder.
That makes sense.
And it's hard with the allegations, which we don't know the full story, and obviously that would sway our rankings a lot depending on our full knowledge. But there's a lot of muddy water around this, so it's a bit hard to definitively answer it. So I guess we'll leave it at C.
Yeah, the thing with me, it was just quite utterly just super unfortunate the way it all unfolded and how his career ended with OKC. But like Garrett said, wish him nothing but the best. I love watching the guy put up 29, 10, and 13. I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always root for the guy. All right, we'll move on to Anthony Morrow.
Likability was like through the roof for me, just because he was one of our first deep threats. He, like I said earlier, he was like the fastest gun in the West. He could shoot that shot so fast. His release point was amazing. And I know that kind of goes in with what he did on the court, but he also had a pretty good personality off of it. I would probably put him B after Maynor. I just really enjoyed everything that Anthony Morrow kind of brought to the team.
I love Anthony Morrow, especially as of recent. He interacts with my page a lot. Every time he does a lot of lives, he always waves and says what's up. So I'm pretty biased on the recency bias, but great guy. As for Thunder time, I didn't watch him too much, but yeah, he's a good guy off the court. So I'm cool with the B ranking.
I actually put him above Eric Maynor, probably because my inner child thanks him for what he did for me. Last time this is actually a while ago. This is the last time I was in Oklahoma City. Went to a home game where Westbrook and KD both didn't play. And Anthony Morrow stepped up that night. Home against the Kings. Thundor was probably there. And he had about, I think, 33 points. I mean, just went nuts. But, yeah, super likable guy. I mean, he was a journeyman, played for a hell of a lot of teams, and there were never any complaints about this guy. So, I mean, I loved Anthony Morrow. Again, just being a fan, just another shooting guard that could actually score. I know we're not talking about game, but just a breath of fresh air. So I like putting him over Maynor, to be honest. Jeremy Lamb.
I felt like he was always so sleepy looking. He never really brought much to the court or to the team. I also had a very interesting run-in with him in public. Nothing to his fault, but I never found him that entertaining or that fun. So I would probably put him even below Giddey.
Well, now I gotta ask: are you allowed to say what happened?
I mean, I was younger when he was here, so I was out at a club, the same club that he was at. He chose to literally swing from the rafters from like this trapeze setup. So that was like the most personality I'd ever seen him have. And so I'm like, oh my God, that is Jeremy Lamb swinging from the rafters. I'm going to film this or like get a picture of it or whatever. And his bodyguard tried to steal my phone and told me that I couldn't take images in public. So it was a very awkward interaction. Not like I said, it wasn't Jeremy Lamb necessarily,
right?
But it was just a really awkward moment. So I mean, it's fun to laugh about in the visual that I remember. But
that is hilarious. That's quite the story. I growing up, Thundor was a big part of my OKC fandom, and I would never think, yeah, you know what, maybe Thundor was at the club with Jeremy Lamb one time. But yeah, C's cool. Jack?
I can't put him over Giddey, so I'm cool with where he is.
Jeremy Lamb for me was a D. Likability. Always came off as lazy. I like what Thundor over there is saying, sleepy-eyed. And to be fully honest, he was the piece for me in the Harden trade where I was like, okay, this is kind of hope. Maybe keeping Ibaka was the right, thing, and we could just kind of replace James with two shooting guards. And he never became much of anything for OKC, so I kind of hold that against him. I probably shouldn't. I mean, it's not his fault that he got traded to OKC, but yeah, I think D tier for me in likability. I also don't love UConn, so that affects that as well. But yeah, we'll move on to Terrence Ferguson.
I think it's kind of similar with like what you were just saying with Lamb, like the expectations and the hope that you'd get an Oklahoma kid come in here, play ball, compete with the best of the best, and he just never really amounted to what the expectations or hopes were for him. So for that, I'd have to give him a C.
Whereabouts on C?
I can't put him over Giddey.
No. Well, for me, this is like I said, one of the first teams I started like really, really watching every game, and he was just so fun with the dunk contest and that Lakers game. But yeah, I didn't like the fact that he didn't turn into what we wanted him to be, which I guess is judging him by his game. So I won't judge him by that. But yeah, I definitely like Giddey more than I liked Ferguson, so I can't be mad at that ranking.
I'm spot on with that ranking. I do have to ask a question. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we drafted Ferguson, he was playing overseas. Was it Australia?
Yep. Melbourne 30, no, Adelaide 36ers, I believe.
Thought you would have more of a liking to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, my reasoning
as well.
Yeah, my reasoning, can't put him over Josh. Definitely over Jeremy, so put him right in the middle. Trey Mann.
Oh man. Trey Mann, the vibes were great. The energy, the way he got along with the rest of the team. I'm gonna put him above Nads on A. I think he had that swagger, he had the vibes, but he just couldn't produce on the court the way the Thunder wanted or needed him to.
See, I'm going to disagree here. I have him bottom of S. If we're talking about likability, there was not a single Thunder fan who didn't root for him. Everyone was getting mad when he wasn't getting minutes. Like, he was the most likable guy on the roster 2 years ago or whenever you want to in that time frame. Well, so I have him S here. I think he's really likable. He likable by everyone. Great attitude. Good guy. And everyone was rooting for him. Like, we wanted him to do good. When he didn't get minutes, everyone was complaining and there'd be outrage. So I've got him at S tier.
This is tough. Here's how I'm going to break it down. I'm going to say A tier, above Kristich. I had no desire to draft Trey Mann out of Florida. I thought he was never an NBA player. I thought he was never an NBA talent. Dude's a good player, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to put him any lower. The fans loved him. The teammates loved him. Great energy. Funny guy. I mean, the teammates still love him. They're all friends. They still post on each other's. They add each other on Instagram. They always take flicks and pictures when they play each other. Man, yeah, I think above Kristich sounds about right. Again, it's just another unfortunate, like, OKC wasn't the spot for Trey Mann. I think when he played or when he plays in Charlotte, he looks fantastic. He has a swagger to him. Kind of brought the AI look back a little bit. So yeah, I like top of it for now. Moving on, Kevin Martin.
As much as I loved his game and I wanted him to stay and play because I thought he was a great scoring option for the Thunder, he offered next to nothing with personality or entertainment. So I would put him I can't put him too far down there, but he's probably more likable than Ferguson because at least he gave us some enjoyment on the court. So I'd put him in between Ferguson and Giddey.
Yeah, I don't have much memory of him, so I'm cool with that.
Super low-key guy, very professional. Yeah, I mean, he did what he could for OKC. Kind of forced in and forced out, but can't put him over Josh, right? Can't put him over Josh. Got to put him over the other two. So I think that's a perfect spot for him.
There's a lot of can't put him over Josh. So does that mean Josh could possibly be promoted to the bottom of B2?
I think he is a good defining level. So, I mean, I would be okay with that. I'm not opposed because that's what we keep saying over and over again. Like, couldn't put him above Giddy.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Good point. Good point. Even I don't want to touch on it because it's none of our business or we shouldn't be speaking at it at all. But if Josh Giddey were to stay in OKC and continue to have success, I mean, he would be higher. But it's just unfortunate the way he, how short-lived he was in OKC. But moving on to Isaiah Joe.
I love Isaiah Joe. I love his game. I love his personality. Any interaction with him or his family's been great. I'd put him probably below Trey Mann on A tier.
I got a case for him being above, to be honest, but I think that could be recency bias. But I think he's a really chill guy. I mean, he doesn't show as much personality off court as Trey Mann, so I guess, I'm good with that ranking.
It's hard to argue with Thundor himself. I mean, who knows more than him, right? But
yeah, definitely.
I love Isaiah Joe. I think he's above Trey Mann. I'm not even speaking on the court here. I just think he is kind of sneaky funny, especially if you follow him on socials. He's a funny guy. He just isn't as flashy as a Trey Mann was. But I do think the locker room loves him. I think the staff loves him. And just as a personal liking, I love Isaiah Joe. I think he's top 8 tier. Okay, we will go to Serge.
I think Serge will probably be our only other guy up in the S tier. I think the personality, the air Congo, the slam dunk contest, the goofiness, the just consistency, what he meant in the early stages of the Thunder, I think all just make me enjoy and adore Serge. And then watching him now with his his cooking shows and everything else that he's doing is entertaining. So
yeah, I was about to mention the podcasts and the cooking shows. He's just got a great character and good personality, so I'm cool with that.
Great character, great personality. Did a lot for Oklahoma City. Was always in the NBA Cares and stuff like that. Meant so much for Oklahoma City and in a basketball aspect. He was the guy coming up with KD, Russ, James. Rooted for him when he won the chip with Toronto. Forever rooted for the guy even when he left. Right below Chet. Harry Jones.
I think this is more of me just not really, me being so disappointed because I was so hyped on him when he got drafted and then he didn't pan out to what I would hope he would be. Didn't have much personality. I'd probably put him right next to Jeremy Lamb, either between him and Ferguson, or maybe even we don't have anybody on the D tier, so I'm just wondering who if anybody will get there. I think it's hard for us to do that because again, it's the Thunder players, so we love and respect all of them, but he's probably getting pretty close to the D tier for me.
Yeah, and I don't have much to add apart from he's interacted with my page quite a bit, so I like him for that. But yeah.
We're risking friendships over here, Jack. If he sees this, what is he going to do?
I did not know that. I think I got to put Perry Jones D tier. There wasn't much to him. Kind of short-lived. The hype was enormous. The product was not. I know we're not talking about basketball, but other than basketball itself, Perry Jones to me is just another one of those roster fillers that didn't really have much effect on me at all. So I'd put him D.
I'll save my friendship and put him C then.
There you go. I didn't know he was interacting with your account. That's actually pretty cool to see Perry Jones still.
Yeah, it's really cool.
You know what? Let me put him at C too because that's awesome. OKC forever, Perry Jones. Last guy, Derek Fisher.
I I mean, post Thunder, he had some awkward run-ins and situations when he was a coach. But what he meant to the team and the locker room and everything else, the willingness to come to Oklahoma City when he did, when he was at the end of his career, I think he was a good leader for the guys. So I'll probably feel pretty good about like a B tier. Like I liked him. I was happy that he came here. I hated him when he was on the Lakers. So for me to even have like some sense of like appreciation for him, I think speaks volumes to the way that he carried himself when in Oklahoma City. So.
And whereabouts on B2?
I think he's fine below Josh. That's fine. I don't really have a big debate either way. But I definitely liked Maynard more than him just because, Maynard was young and all this potential, and he was like everything that that we wanted in a backup. So Derek Fisher was just here on the end of his career and gave a little bit of leadership, gave a little bit of a bump in the playoffs, but
Jack?
Yeah, I got nothing to follow that. So
Okay. Yeah. Really good point there with before and after Oklahoma City. Not much love for Derek Fisher at all. In Oklahoma City, absolutely loved him. Really was huge in the bump in the playoffs, especially for such a young team. OKC was super young and super talented. They just needed some veteran leadership, and he also came up big with his play. It's kind of like a Chris Paul situation for me.
yeah. I was just about
I'm not gonna put him at Chris Paul standard as a player, but the likability. I mean, I hated Chris Paul before he came to OKC, and ever since, I mean, I don't love him, but that year in OKC, I mean, he was outstanding for OKC. I loved him. So yeah, very similar. Yeah, right below Josh seems about right. Because I mean, Derek Fisher wasn't here for more than two years anyway. So right below Josh seems good. But yeah, I love Derek Fisher. Trying to see here if there's anything we wanted to. I like the list. I think it's a good balance between Superfan Thundor, who's been to every game known to man, and then Jack likes to call me Unc Garrett because I'm 6 years older than him. So I guess my Unc status, watching these guys growing up, we have a bit of credibility here. And then Jack will call him the new gen. Definitely loved Trey Man. Definitely loved Josh. So yeah. I don't have any problems with the list. I also don't have any problems putting anyone D. The only one I don't want to single him. No, he interacts with Jack's page. Perry Jones is definitely a C tier. So yeah. Anyway, thank you to everyone who made it this far and watched along. You could go ahead and comment on our Instagram. We're going to be posting these at Bring the Thunder Podcast. Give us your opinion. I really value everybody's opinion and love to see the different ideas and different minds of OKC fans because we tend to disagree a lot. I see.
I know this was way too civil here. No one threatened to quit the video this time.
Yeah, I was almost out last time.
We made it to the end.
Yeah, I'd like to give a big thank you to Garrett Thundor Haviland, Thunder legend himself. Second time on the podcast. Just really appreciate you. And yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe to Bring the Thunder Podcast and follow us on X, Instagram. We're everywhere, guys. I don't even got to say anymore. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And we will see you guys next time. And Thunder up, baby. Let's go.
Woo!